great to see each of you this weekend. We're in this series that we've been calling Be Basic. Everybody say Be Basic. And we're trying to learn how to be basic in our life, go back to the basics of our faith. And really over the last few weekends, we've been developing a couple of different kind of ideas. We spent a couple of weeks just talking about our faith and how that is a basic part of our relationship with God, is just increasing our faith and finding this developing faith in our lives. And so we talked about how God wants to take our faith and really work in our faith and do such things through us. And we talked about a lot of that comes out of, we talked about this Be Basic theme of our thinking. That there's so much that happens in our brain, and we've got to be able to submit our thoughts to the cross just as much as we submit our lives to the cross, because our thoughts really do affect our life in so many ways. And so we talked about the idea of how our thoughts are a basic part of our relationship with God, and how we need to be in control of our thoughts and capture our thoughts and no more stinking thinking, and that we allow Jesus to really redeem our thoughts. We talked about prayer being a basic. In fact, we took the first 21 days of the year and just kind of said, hey, let's get into a prayer rhythm during these first 21 days. Let's pray together. And then we encourage you, for all of you, to keep that going even past those 21 days, and to make prayer something that is a basic part of your life, that you go to God in prayer, that you talk to Him in prayer, that you have an ongoing relationship with Him, and that you spend time with Him, developing that relationship with Him. And then, of course, we started in the first part of this whole series that one of the most basic things we can do in our faith is to read Scripture and to engage in Scripture. And so we've been asking you to do that and to be able to track that and show how many minutes we're reading together. And so I want you to get your phones out. You should be used to this by now. Get our phones out. We're going to point them, camera, at the QR code. Once you get your camera up, you can point it at the QR code right here, and that will allow you to go to a form where you can track how many minutes you have read this past week. And so, each Sunday, we're actually reporting what y'all did last week. So this week, we're celebrating, but you are putting in there what you did this past week. And so next Sunday, we'll tell you how you did this week. And so this past week, though, we didn't quite hit the mark, and we went up a little bit. Remember, I told you we had kind of really came out, and we're doing so good, blew it out of the water, our goal of 20,022 minutes. But then last week, we kind of fell below that. This week, we're below it again, but you did go up a little bit. We had 17,356 minutes that we read as a church, and so we're getting closer to that goal, but I know we can do that goal. And so if you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, I'm part of that, I didn't read this past week, that's okay. It's okay. You're going to get back into it this week, because we saw if you will engage with Scripture 4 or more times a week, it will drastically change your life. It will practical things in your life will be better. You'll have a relationship with God, and that is something we want you to do. So track that this week. Read the Bible this week. Count your time up. Put it in next week when we come as well, and we're going to do that together and meet that goal together. Now, we've been studying the book of Romans and the book of Mark, kind of in tandem, taking a chapter each and every week out of these two books of the Bible, kind of putting them parallel to one another, and that's what we've been doing the last few weeks in the first part of this year in this Be Basic series. And so we're going to look at Romans chapter 6 and Mark chapter 6 today, and of course now going forward this week, you'll be reading the 7th chapter of those books. And if you haven't jumped in yet, by the way, 4 minutes. 4 minutes to read one chapter of one of these books. So in 8 minutes, you can read 2 chapters every day. If you just read 8 minutes a day, you could catch up. You could continue to reading the one we're doing this week over and over again, and really letting it get into who you are and showing you where God would want you to be. But I want to take out of Romans chapter 6, just want to take one verse to really start off today, kind of set the tone for where we're going to go, bring some things together with the 6th chapter of March, and really allow Jesus to show us some things about ourselves that we need to deal with today. So Romans chapter 6, verse 6, this is the foundation of where we preach everything that we preach. Really, everything we preach is on this foundation. It says this: we know, you can know, by the way, you can have confidence, you can walk with the confidence that you belong to Him, that you are a child. You can have your identity based in who you are and whose you are. You can know. It says, we know that our old sinful selves, all of us have an old sinful selves. For those of us who have allowed Jesus to save us, we have walked past that old sinful self. For those of you who maybe are still figuring out this whole Jesus thing, still kind of kicking the tires, figuring out this whole relationship with him, you still live in that old sinful self. And so, but he says, we know that our old sinful selves were crucified with Christ. Why? So that sin might lose its power in our lives. And so there is a power that sin has that can control our lives, that can affect our lives, that can really bring us down to a depression and a level of like fighting against sin and always being caught up in sin. There's a place where that is. There's a power that sin has in our lives, but it can be gone. It's been defeated by the cross. It says we are no longer slaves to sin. In fact, why don't we just, for like 3 seconds, 5 seconds maybe, give God a hand just saying, I am no longer a slave to sin. Like, that's a pretty big deal. So we build on this foundation of the fact that sin doesn't have power over us anymore. We're no longer slaves to sin, and that it was all crucified with Jesus Christ. So what does that mean, though, in our lives? Well, I want to jump over to Mark chapter 6. And in Mark chapter 6, we get to see a story about Jesus that really does teach us about some things that can still draw us into our old selves, and acting like sin still has power in our lives. And we want to build instead on this foundation. All right, it says Jesus left that part of the country, Mark chapter 6. Jesus left that part of the country and returned with his disciples to Nazareth. So Jesus has just healed the little girl. You remember last weekend, he went into her home, into her room. He heals her in front of 3 disciples, and the mom and dad, only 5 people got to be in the room where it happened. You guys remember we talked about the type of things that bring us into that room and type of things that can happen in that room. And not only did he heal her, he brought her back to life. I mean, she was dead, and now she's been brought back to life. And then he moves, after that, once again back to Nazareth. And the Bible tells us that Nazareth is his hometown. And the next Sabbath, he began teaching in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. They were amazed. That's a pretty good teaching. Jesus is so countercultural. He's so different than everything they've ever heard. He's so different from the law. He's got such a different message to say that the people were amazed at what he was saying. You know, when we're amazed by something, what do? We kind of make a noise. We're like, ooh. Everybody give me your best. Ooh. Ooh, yeah, that's really good. That's amazing, you might say. Oh, somebody tells you something, it's amazing. You go, oh. All right, I understand. So we have this vocal response, this emotional response when we're amazed by something, right? And in the scripture, it says Jesus taught, and the people were amazed at what he was saying. They were intrigued. They're like, what is he teaching about? And so Jesus was teaching this. They're amazed. And it says, they ask a question. Where did he get all of this wisdom and the power to perform such miracles? This is a great question, and one that we can see in these people that they had a developing faith. You remember last weekend we talked about the different stages of faith and how our faith really does have, it does affect the outcome, the byproduct of our lives. There's a connection between our faith and what happens in our lives, and we see in these people because they're asking this question like, where does he get this wisdom? How does he have this power? How does he perform all these miracles? That they have this developing faith. We saw several different kinds of faith. We saw developing faith. We saw a desperate faith. Remember the man brought his sick child or came about his sick child and said, hey, Jesus, you got to come back. I'm desperate. I don't even know if you're the truth. I don't even know if what they're saying about you is true, but I'm so desperate for something. I'm going to come and just try. And for some of you, you're in that place. You're desperate. You're just like, I need something. Maybe this church thing, maybe this Jesus thing, maybe that'll be the thing. For others, there's a determined faith. And we saw the woman who said, you know what? If I can just get to Jesus and touch him, I know I'll be healed. And for some of you, you know the way, you know the truth, you know the life, and his name is Jesus. And your faith is in a place where you're just like, I'm determined I'm going to get in front of him. But for others of us, it might be a depleted faith. And we talked about that there's just stuff we go through in life. And we get to a place where we're just depleted. We're just broken. We need a touch from Jesus, but we don't have even the faith to be able to keep going on. And so like the crowd that was outside this little girl's home, like the mom who had just seen her daughter just breathe her last breath and the color drain out of her body, she had to borrow some faith from her husband. She had to walk in his faith because she was depleted. And we know a lot of us are in that place where we have a depleted faith. There were others that had a disappointing faith. You remember the crowd wasn't able to come into the room where it happened because Jesus, something about their faith, it was disappointing to him. They couldn't move on and move past. And so he said, you can't even go to the place where the miracle is going to be. But what we all want to get, and where this mother got when she borrowed faith, where this man got when he was desperate and determined to get in front of her, in front of Jesus, where we get to is this dynamic faith. The word dynamos is in the scriptures. It says power of God. And we talk about this explosive. So that when they got into the room where it happened, it was just explosive faith that happened. It was dynamic faith, and that's where we want to be. But we see the way we get there is through a developing faith. And so the scriptures are being taught. Jesus is teaching them. And then there is this chance, this developing faith is happening. And this chance in that moment to take their faith to the next level. They could have gone, all right, I want to go to the next level. I want to be desperate for him. They're asking this question, where's the power come from? Where does he get this wisdom? How does he perform these miracles? And we've spent 2 weekends talking about this whole idea of faith, and they're at this place where their faith is tied to what their life will look like. And so these people have this opportunity. Jesus has taught. They're amazed. They have this response. They're asking questions. And they're at this decision point. We call it a response time. We have a response time here every single weekend at Freedom Church after the preaching, and we have another song of worship, and it's a place where you can go, God has spoken to me. Now what am I going to do about it? Like he said, am I going to be action-oriented? Am I going to go to the crosses? Am I going to take communion? Am I going to go pray with somebody? Am I going to go and light a candle as a symbol of what he's doing in my life? God is speaking to me. What am I going to do about it? And that's where these people were. God is speaking to them. And their response, just like our response, will determine their future. And so they ask a question. And asking questions is a good thing to do. It's a good thing. I think sometimes we try to teach people, like, don't have any doubts about your faith. Don't have any doubts about when you're reading the Bible, questions about when you're reading the Bible. I say ask all the questions. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, hey, if you have any questions about anything in life, come and ask me. Even if you think you'd be embarrassed by it, whatever it is, you come and you ask me anything you want to ask me, anytime you want to, and I will give you a good answer. And I think about that, and I'm like, my Father, my Heavenly Father, is such a better dad than I am. So I can come to him with any question I have, any doubt that I have, anything that I'm up against and going, I don't know how this is going to work out, God. Questions are good. Even bad questions are good because he can show you how they're bad questions. He can work in you. He can teach you. He can show you. And so they come and they have questions. They're asking the questions. And they ask, where did he get all this wisdom and the power to perform such miracles? It's a great question. Where does this come from? I want to develop in my faith. I want to know more. I want to answer this question. And the question recognizes that Jesus has wisdom. So I love the question because it recognizes his wisdom. It recognizes his power, that he has power. It recognizes that both of these things together are supernatural because miracles are happening. What is a miracle? It's when something happens that naturally couldn't happen, and it happens in the supernatural. And so there's all this going on. This question shows us that they've got the right mindset. They're asking the right things. They're allowing their hearts to process things in the right way. And so what we see is this developing faith with an opportunity to go towards a dynamic faith. But then something happens. I'd suggest it starts with a thought. That there's a thought that goes on. Because they're asking themselves questions. They're asking right questions verbally. But then something's going on in their minds. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you're talking with them and you realize that while they're talking, you're thinking about something else? And they're like, their mouth is moving a lot, and then about 3 or 4 minutes into it, you're like, oh no. I am going to have to give some reaction to this story. And if it's your spouse, just squeeze their hand right now. You know. And so I'm going to have to give some reaction to this story, and I don't know what to do. And then have you ever had it where, like, you go, and at the end of it, you go, yeah, and they're like, I just told you that my mom's dying. Why are you laughing? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And you're like, oh no. And so I've gotten old enough. I've actually gotten old enough. I'll do this to my staff all the time. They'll be talking, and I'll be like, hey, stop. I haven't listened to a word that you've said. Like, not a single word. Like, I don't even try to pretend anymore. I don't try to fake it anymore. I'm just like, I'm not listening to anything you're saying at the house. The kids will be talking to me, and I'll hear Connie in the background talking, and then I'll realize that what she said is, hey, guys, he's not listening to anything you're saying right now. Like, he's got something on his mind. He's texting. Something's going on. Just give him a minute, and he'll get to a place where he can actually hear you, but you're just saying it over and over. Like, Connie has told me before that Sam has said, like, Dad, like 9 times in a row, and I'm just like staring off. And she's like, what are you thinking about during those moments? And I'm like, donuts, probably. I don't know. I mean, like, I know you, as a woman, you have a much more complex, answer to what you would be thinking about, but I promise I'm not thinking about that much. But in this instance, there's something goes on in their minds, right? Because they're saying the right thing verbally, but there's a whole thing going on in their mind. In fact, a thought is often our attempt to answer our own questions. I mean, you ask the question out loud of somebody, but then you're thinking about what you hope they will say. You're thinking about what you would say. I mean, maybe you even ask the rhetorical question out loud to God. But then you're in your mind, you're answering the question yourself with negative answers and negative thought and stinking thinking. And so there's this whole thing going on. Something happens. And it says in the scripture, it says, then they scoffed. I love the description of the attitude that is here. In the Bible, this is coming from the NLT translation, and it's not a word-for-word translation. In other words, where they take each Greek word and each Hebrew word, whichever it may be, and they just translate word for word. This is what each word was, and this is what was said, just the facts. Like the ESV translation is a word-for-word translation. So you just translate word for word, what's going on. The NLT that I like to use is a phrase-for-phrase translation. And so that means that they take the words, and they take the context of the words, and they take what the actions were following the words, and they put that together in a phrase and an idea, and so you can kind of feel. And so it doesn't just translate the word, it actually helps us to translate the scene. Like what was really going on in this moment. And the translators here say that they scoffed. And we all know what a scoff is, right? It's a, everybody do it. Give me your best scoff. You've done it. Your boss has come in, and they're like, hey, guys, I'm going to need y'all to work a little bit extra, a little harder. We got some stuff going on. Might even have to work a Saturday this week. Hey, if y'all can just do that for me, that'd be great. All right, awesome. They walk out of the room, and there's a collective, right? If you have teenagers in the home, you know what a scoff is because you can't hardly hear what they're saying above the sound of their eyes rolling. I'll say, what'd you put on? What are you texting? Who are you texting? I'm not texting, Dad. I'm Instagramming. So I've just taken to, what are you doing with your fingers? Like, what are you typing, And so you have this scoff that happens, and there's this attitude that the writers are trying to show us, something that changed. And I was looking at this word scoff. I love the word scoff because it kind of gives us a mood, gives us a tone, gives us an attitude to what's going on. But I'm a preacher. And so I looked at scoff, and immediately I like Rain Man or, Beautiful Mind or whatever. I saw something changed. Our faith fails. Just something changed. Our faith fails. They were in a good place. They were asking the right questions. They were like, hey, where does this power come from? How does this all work? How does it come together? I mean, how does he have these miracles? This girl was dead, now she's alive. Like, how does this, where does he get such wisdom? He just taught us in the synagogue and such wisdom, and something then changes. They go from that place to this other place of scoffing, asking the question, it's a legitimate question, to something changes. Our faith fails. We have scoff moments. If the sound of being amazed at God is, oh man, oh, look at what God did. Wow. If the sound of being amazed at God is worship, then the sound of scoffing at God is within our souls. It's just this, really? Really, God, you're trying to tell me that this can work out? I mean, really, God? You're trying to tell me that you can use me? So what changes? Look at what changes. They say, he's just a carpenter. They scoffed. He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of Joseph and James and Judas and Simon. We know his brothers. We know who he is. His sisters live right here among us. Like, we know this guy. Who does he think he is to come and tell us that he healed somebody? Or who does he think he is teaching in the synagogue? He comes home for just a moment, and all of a sudden he's coming up here into the synagogue and teaching and preaching, and he thinks that we're supposed to receive something from him. We know him. They scoffed. And that's a statement that makes the translators decide that they said it with attitude, with scoffing. Do you ever scoff at God? You might not audibly go, God. But within your spirit, he says, hey, I want to use you. You've got a story, and I want to use your story. And I want to use your time and your talent and your treasure. I want to use everything. I love you, and I want to use you. And man, when you hear the stories about other people being used and other people, God working in them, and how God uses them and their finances, and how God uses them and their time and their treasure and their talent, and you hear all that and you're celebrating it, but then God says, and yeah, I want to use you. And you're like, something changes and our faith fails. Oh God, you can't possibly use me. I mean, you know all the mistakes I made. You can't possibly use me. Do you know how busy I am, God? Like, I can barely get everything done that I need to get done. Do you know how much work requires of me, God? And we begin to scoff at God. God says, I want to heal something in you. And we love it. Maybe we even tear up when we hear the stories that we tell of life change and marriages healed and people being physically healed and the things that go on in people's lives in this church, and we hear it and we're celebrating with it, and we have this amazed moment. Oh, man, wow, look at that. And then God goes, I want to heal you. Oh, wait a minute now. My marriage is, I don't know about that. I think it might be beyond repair. I mean, I don't see how you can do anything in my life, God. I mean, I know you can raise a little girl from the dead who no longer had a heartbeat, but I don't see how you could bring this life that's so dead back. It's too dead, God. Some things are worse than death, God, and I feel like, God, there's no way you can do it. And we scoff at God wanting to use us, wanting to heal us, wanting to repair our lives, our situations. Yeah. Oh, man. Is the sound of amazement. We feel that in our spirit sometimes. I know that we all have felt in our souls the sound of a scoff. Something changed. Our faith fails. We were developing our faith. We were desperate in our faith. We were determined in our faith. We were right on the edge. The question was, how does he do this? How does he have this wisdom? How does he have this power? And then something changed and their faith fails. And notice, too, that the scoffing began when the attitude of the question changed. Like something about the question went from this question that was like, I really want to know what's going on, to a question that already had an answer to it. The power of, what if they'd asked it a little bit differently? What if their response would have been a little bit different? What if the writers would have known what they did on the other side of this question? I bet it could have changed everything. What if they'd have said, like, I mean, isn't he just a carpenter? And isn't he just the son of Mary? He's the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon, right? That's how this guy is, right? But he's full of power and he's full of wisdom and he's performing these miracles, but I just want to make sure, because I've got to resolve, like, I know this guy, and I know his sisters, and I know him. How do I resolve this? What if it would have just changed? I wonder if the gospel writer would have instead said, then they wondered aloud. Isn't he just a carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Because it's okay to wonder about that. Because he is, right? I mean, they're sitting there going, wait, this guy is telling me that he was the one who spoke the trees into their very existence, and yet I know he's also the one who used the wood to build my bedside table. Like he's a carpenter, right? But he was. He was the son of Mary, the brother of James, Joseph, Judas. They weren't asking anything that was out of line. It was the attitude. It was something on the inside that caused them to ask that way. It was something that changed their whole mindset. It was the thinking that was going on. It was their presuppositions about what that meant if he was just a carpenter, the son of Mary and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon. And instead of wondering, instead of seeking answers, they were asking out of this attitude of a scoff. Something changes. And our faith begins to fail. So why do they think this? What changed? What was it that took them from being in a place, in a position of realizing who God was, their faith building on the fact of his wisdom, his power, and his miracles, to then just one step away from being to this place? It tells us in the scripture. It says they were deeply offended, and therefore they refused to believe in him. So they didn't just, like, their faith just fall away. They refused to believe in him. And why did they do that? What got them to that place? They were deeply offended. The word there for offense or offended in the scripture is this word that is scandalon. We're going to put the Greek word up here on the screen for you just so you can see it. And it's this word scandalon. It's an interesting word. We derive our word scandal from there. It's a word that means a trap. That's what it means. It means to fall into or be drawn into a trap. And I was reading a little bit about this word because I've preached on this word before, and I love the idea that offense is something that we kind of get trapped by and we fall into. But as I was reading more and thinking more about the culture, I realized that the culture around this word was a little different than the culture maybe that we are brought up in. In fact, this word is very much, is seen mostly, almost exclusively, in the biblical writing. So this Greek word, you don't see it in a lot of other Greek writings and classical Greek literature or anything. So it was really culturally a word that was used in this region where the Bible was written. And that made me start to think about it. And I was thinking about that region. That region is made up of a lot of fishing, right? So we know that a lot of the gospel writers and or the disciples rather, were fishermen. We know that, some of the gospel writers were. We know that people all around it, they were fishermen. They depended on fishing. They saw a lot of fishing. They knew the language of fishing. So I go fly fishing to take some time away in the summer with a group that brings us in as pastors and allows us to just have some time off. And I'll go almost every year. I'll go up in Montana, and I'll go fly fishing. And there's a lot of language to fly fishing that if you don't fly fish, you wouldn't know the language. Like the word mend, for example. Well, if we say to you, you're going to mend something, you have certain things that you think about that word. But in fly fishing, there's this word mend. It just means to you kind of swoop over your line to allow the drag of the water, and you're mending it. You're making it right again. You're making it correct to where you want it. And so there's language to that. Well, within fishing, there was this language, and there was a certain type of trap in fishing that they would use. And in fact, a lot of people who study this and study the languages and what was going on, believe that the reason this word is almost exclusive to the Bible is because it was a known thing in this region that there was this type of trap that they would use to night fish. And what they would do is they had this contraption, this apparatus that they built that would float beneath the surface of the water and above the water. But beneath the surface is there was like this trap where the fish would come up into the trap. And on top of the surface, they would light a fire inside of this apparatus, and it would be light on top of the surface of the water. So they would go at night, they would light a fire on the top of it, and the fish would come up, and they would get trapped inside of this apparatus, and then they would meet the business side of a harpoon at that point, all right? And so, boom, there'd be, and a lot of you from Berkeley County especially, you were like, we've done this before, right? You shine a light into the water, it draws the fish up, and then instead of, a harpoon, you use a high-powered rifle. All right? You blow the fish's face off, all right? So you, boom, and then they float up, you net them, and it's fun, right? All right, so, and now you're like, honey, I can do this and tell you I'm going to do Bible things, all right? Because it's in Mark chapter 6. It's my life verse now. They were night fishing. All right, so they would put this thing up here, and here's what happened. The fish would be below the surface, in the place where they're supposed to be, swimming around, eating at night. That's when they would feed, They're eating, and all of a sudden they go, oh, shiny, bright, something's interesting. And they get attracted by and distracted by this apparatus. They'd fly up into it, and then they would end their life. They'd be caught. And this was the way they would night fish. And the scholars say that they're using this word literally, that what they're saying is they were being night fished and refused to believe in him. They were being distracted away by this something that was distracting, and it was attracting, and it was bright, and it was shining. They were being distracted away from the purpose that they had in life, where they should be. They were being brought out of a deep place and being brought to a shallow place, and they totally changed everything about their thinking, their faith in that moment. They were deeply offended. So this word that we use for offense is this idea that we are where we're supposed to be. Our faith is developing the way that it's supposed to develop. That everything is we're asking the right questions. We're going to small group. We're coming to worship. Doing all the things. We're praying. We're reading our Bibles. And then there's something bright and shiny that when it brings us to the surface, gets us into a shallow place. And when we get into that shallow place, we lose sight of everything that God has for us, and we're distracted and attracted towards offense. Forgetting what we've experienced and seen. They had experienced and seen Jesus move in incredible ways. Forgetting what they have experienced and seen, they started to rely on what they thought and felt. We get to a place where we are offended when we start to rely on what we think and what we feel, and we are distracted away from God's purpose to our life. Offense is being attracted and distracted by a thought or feeling about someone or something and being met spiritually with the business end of a harpoon. It will stop you in your tracks spiritually. Your faith will fall. Something changed, our faith fails. This is the power of offense. And the byproduct, everything has a byproduct, right? There is a reaction to there's an action to every reaction. There's a byproduct of every choice. There's a consequence to everything we do. Everything we do in life, there's something that happens because we do, think, say, all those things. There's risk aversion that we have to play in that. We go, okay, something's going to happen because I do this, but something always happens. And there is a byproduct to us carrying around offense. There's a byproduct, and it's one of the scariest things in Scripture. It's actually one of the scariest moments with Jesus, because we saw that they were amazed at Jesus, but we're going to get to see what amazed Jesus. And something amazed him because it's so scary And the power of offense, the byproduct of offense, is so scary that it is something we have to pay attention to. And for many of us, we are in this room and we are living in offense. We have been attracted and distracted by the light of offense. We've gotten caught up in the pain of offense. We've gotten caught up in everything that offends us. And you can't even walk in 2022 without offending somebody. Can't believe you're walking in a time like this. Who would walk? So everybody's getting offended. Everybody's walking around offending everybody. And so you live in this offended place. And I want to tell you, I wouldn't be a good pastor if I didn't tell you. The byproduct of offense is scary. Look at what it is. And because of their unbelief, so offense turns into unbelief. That they decided, what did it say? They decided and refused to believe in him. And because of their unbelief, determined unbelief, not determined faith, determined unbelief. Listen to this phrase. He couldn't, everybody say couldn't. He couldn't do any miracles among them except to place his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. It actually startled Jesus. He couldn't believe he had done what he had done. He had raised this little girl, just the story before, the days before. He had walked with these people. He had taught these people. He had shown them, and he got them to this place where they were going, oh, man. Oh, wow. Look at his power. Look at his wisdom. Look at the miracles that he's doing. And yet something changed. Their faith failed. And Jesus is amazed at their unbelief. And their offense led to a level of unbelief that actually caused it where Jesus couldn't do any miracles. Man, that's scary to me. I'm realizing in my own life, I can live in such a place of offense that it will allow my faith to be failing at such a level that the very miracle I'm praying for might be being stopped by my own offense. I'm going to God asking for a miracle that he wants to do in my life, desires to do in my life, but my level of offense has made it to where my faith is disappointing to a place where Jesus said he couldn't do any miracles. And I want to tell you, a lot of us are offended. In case you give other names to it, let's talk about some common names to offense. Maybe what you say is, I was betrayed. So you don't know, Pastor. It's not that I'm offended. It's not that I haven't forgiven them, but you just don't know. I mean, betrayal. I never really understood true emotional pain until I was betrayed. Betrayal is the worst kind of offense because it always involves someone that you've given such a level of trust to, because the only way they could really hurt you that deeply is that they had that level of trust. And the more trust that you've given them, the deeper the wound can be. And so for many of you, they told you that it would be for better or for worse, but when worse came, they were out. For many of you, they said, let's go into business together. You can trust me. And you found out you couldn't. For many of them, they said, I'll always be your friend. I'll always be there beside you. And yeah, they betrayed you at the deepest level. And so we call it betrayal, and we say I'm hurting from betrayal. And listen, what they were saying about Jesus, remember, was all correct. He was the carpenter. He was Mary's son. That was their brothers. That was his sisters. Everything they were saying was correct. It was what they did with it. It was what they allowed it to offend them, because they said, well, wait a minute. We're offended by that. We're offended that who does he think he is? Coming up in here teaching us. Who does he think he is telling us that he can give us healing? They allowed offense to settle on them. The truth was there. And so I'm telling you, I know they did betray you. I know they did. I know how much betrayal hurts. I know that it ends up causing you to live in such weird places. Because here's what betrayal does and what offense looks like with betrayal. Because it's easy to say, I'm not offended, but what would you say this? But I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Or however it was George Bush said that back in the day. Remember, he got that all kind of mixed up. And you're like, no. I don't trust anybody. And see, here's what I know about you, because I know it about me. If you don't trust anybody, you don't trust God. Because God will bring people into your lives, and they are the physical people that God wants to work through. And when you trust God, you trust others. Say, but they hurt me. They betrayed me. Yep. And we did the same to Jesus. Yet he trusts us with so much, doesn't he? He trusts us with his church. He trusts us with his word. He trusts us with ministry. And so when we say, that's what offense looks like. I don't trust anybody. I mean, I'll never be hurt again. So I'm going to put up such a thick skin that nobody will ever be able to get through this skin. You just come at me, come try. But that means nobody can get to know you either. Nobody really knows anything about you because you've put up such a tough skin, such a thick skin that nobody can actually ever get to know, because you know if they get to know you, they can hurt you. That's offense. Offense is not forgetting. You know, a lot of people will say, forgive, but you never forget. And there's some things that you can't forget. I get it. I understand. But what if we tried every now and then? What if we just had selective amnesia every now and then? What if we were like, you know what? I'm just going to forget that they did that. I'm going to forget it. I mean, I may not put myself back into as close a position with them. We got to be wise, right? But I'm not going to walk into every situation, and every time I see them, and every time I run into them, and every time I think of them, I'm just not going to let that boil up inside of me and let that just kind of, let them live rent-free in my home, in my mind for the rest of my life. No, I'm just going to forget it. What did Jesus do on the cross? He said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. What if every now and then, another type of hurt and another type of offense we get is from death words. People speak death words over us when they're angry, when they say things to us. And what if every now and then we just did like Jesus and said, you know what, I know they said that, but they didn't know what they were doing. Something must have happened to them today that made them act a fool, because they didn't mean that. Have you ever had anything happen to you that made you act a fool? Come on now, you're in church, don't lie. In fact, can I give you a secret? Hardly anybody will tell you this truth. I'm just going to tell you this truth. You're walking around worrying about how much people are offending you. You offend people all the time. Like all the time. All the time. You are offensive and don't even know it. You know why? Because all you think about is you, and all I think about is me most of the time. I never think about what I do to offend people. I mean, and what do I do for myself? I mean, yeah, baby, I said that. I know I said that, but I didn't mean it. You know that's not me. Like, you know that's not me, right? What do we do for ourselves? Always. We think the best. We assume the best about ourselves, but we walk around offended about what everybody says. What if we just said, oh, man, they didn't mean that? And I know the more pragmatic among us will go, well, what if they did? Well, just lie to yourself and tell you that they didn't. Be like, oh, they didn't mean that. She didn't really mean to say that about me. She didn't really mean it the way she said it. What if she did? Who cares? One of the best things, I tell people all the time, they say, people talk about you. I said, no, I don't know, and I don't want to know, because ignorance is bliss. Just be like, I'm just going to forget that happened. Say, well, won't you get run over in life? You know what? I found that I only get run over if I allow myself to get run over. But what if I just move out of the way and let you drive by? Just go on by. Come on. Bye, Felicia. Just be in your mean self. Just go on. I don't have to receive that. Because here's what offense is. Offense is someone else trying to hand you their offense. Hurt people hurt people. Mean people say mean things. But people who have been hurt people. People who have had mean things said to them, say mean things. They're carrying away. What if you actually had compassion and went, man, for someone to say something that mean, that unkind, man, I need to pray for them. Because there must have been a lot of hurt done to them. Must have been a lot of things said to them. To even know to say those words out loud about somebody means somebody said it over them. Somebody spoke it over them. What if you just had compassion? What if you just, when someone lies about you and you're the only one who knows the truth? What if you just thought, man, what does it take to lie about someone, knowing your life? What type of torment do you have to be under in your own life to want to go around lying about people? And what if you just broke for them? And here's the thing I found about people lying about you. The scripture says that the truth will set you free. The truth sets you free. The truth will come out one day. The truth will come out. People can only lie for so long before they've lied to so many people that they can't even keep up with it. It'll all come out one day. And what if you just said, I'm not going to worry about what they said about me? They lie about me, Pastor. You probably lie about them too. You don't mean to sometimes, or maybe you do mean to. Because you want to get back at them too. What if we all just decided we're not going to take that offense? People hand you offense. What if you said, no, thank you, I'm all good. I'm all right, I don't need to take your offense. I'm not going to carry that for you. Because what they're wanting you to do is carry their anger, their neglect. They were neglected in such a way. They were rejected in such a way. They were abandoned in such a way. They had prejudice shown to them in such a way. And so they're trying to do all those things to just get rid of something that's on them. And what if you just said, no, thank you? Not interested in that. What if we didn't get offended every time somebody didn't invite us somewhere? I'm just trying to help you with your life being better. Today's Super Bowl Sunday. Somebody didn't invite you to something. And there are going to be people who it will ruin their day, their week, their month, maybe even every time they see that person, they will carry a grudge for the rest of their life. And let me give you some secrets. It's probably in your email that you don't ever check. Because we know as a church how much you check your email, because it tells us when you open the emails we send you, and y'all don't ever open no emails. And so you probably got it down buried deep in some email, something somewhere. They probably invited you, or maybe they didn't. And here's the deal. You probably are the living epitome of that meme, I want you to invite me, but I'm not going to come anyway. Right? And so you're mad about not getting invited to a Super Bowl party that you weren't going to go to anyway because you didn't invite the people that you wanted to invite you. So what if you just said, I'm not going to let that bother me? Maybe their house is too small to invite me. They couldn't invite any more people. Maybe I get on their nerves. Maybe I don't pull for the team they pull for. Maybe they forgot. Whatever the reason is, I'm just not going to live in offense. I'm going to say, God, what are you giving me today? Oh, you wanted me to be invited to that? Great. You didn't want me to be invited to that? Good. All things that are good come from God, so if it didn't come from you, it must not need to happen. I didn't need to be invited into that friend set. I didn't need to be. What if we just lowered our expectation for people? Have you ever thought that maybe people aren't the problem, your expectations are? And the reason you're so offended, I hear this phrase all the time, they just weren't a good friend. What does that mean? They were a friend. Have you ever been in a place where you didn't have a friend? I'll take a pretty good friend over no friends. I'll take a friend who shows up every now and then over one who never shows up at all. And you say, oh, they just weren't a very good friend. But they were a friend. Maybe your expectations were just too high. I had somebody meet with me one time to tell me, they just wanted to meet with me and tell me that I was not a very good friend. Y'all wouldn't believe some of the things that people tell me. They said, you're just not a very good friend. But then they said, but you're a really good pastor. So you know what I said? I said, great, I'll be your pastor then. And you don't have to have any expectations on me to be your friend. And I bet, what if I might be a pretty good friend if you didn't have any expectations on me at all, because I do more than you thought I was going to do. So what if you just thought everybody's going to pretty much do nothing? They don't, because here's a secret. Here's a secret. Nobody owes you anything. Nothing. They don't owe you an invitation. They don't owe you a smile. They don't owe you anything. So what if everything you got from them, you were like, praise God. Praise God. I got that. I can't believe they showed up this one time. Praise God. They finally gave me an emotional reaction to something I said. Praise God. They finally said they were going to pray for me when I was trying to get them to pray for me. Praise God. What if you just took whatever you got and said, God, if you gave it to me, then I don't have any expectations to not be met. And what if every expectation you had, you just put in God? Because any expectation you have on him, he will meet them time and time again. I'm going to tell you, Connie and I have been married 26 years, right? Am I right? Yes, all right. 26 years. We've been together almost 30 years. October will be 30 years that we've been dating or together. If this woman didn't practice selective amnesia, if this woman did not let me start over with new manna every morning, every day she just pretends that she's having to tell me again, hey, do you think you might could get those clothes into that hamper? Is that a possibility? Like every day she starts over. Like she doesn't have selective amnesia. Every day. She expectations. I remember when she fired me as God. We told each other through our counselor, Pastor Chip Judd, we said, hey, I'm firing you as God and you're firing me as God. And now whatever I get from you is just cherry on top. Just amazing that I get. Can't believe I get to live with you. Can't believe that I have someone who has stuck with me. We were at a table of people the other night, and they were all going through how long they've been married, and they looked at us and were like, 26 years? Nobody does that anymore. I was like, we do. Boom. Winner. Right? We do. Why? How do we I get to be with someone for 26 years. What if you had this mindset of like, I have someone who actually wants to sleep in the same bed as me. You snore really loud. Nobody. I have somebody who wants to eat dinner with me almost every night. You don't even want to be with yourself almost every night. I have somebody who wants to be my friend. They want to be in my life in some way. What if we just took what God gave us, lowered our expectations, and didn't live in offense? I'm telling you, offense is killing you. But here's the scariest thing. The miracle you're praying for might be being stopped by your offense. And I can definitely tell you the joy you're longing for is being, because some of y'all are just in a bad mood all the time. All the time. In a bad mood about everything that's happening. You're offended over mask or no mask, offended over CDC and no CDC. You're offended over this and over that. Offended that this team made it to the Super Bowl and your team didn't make it to the Super Bowl. Offended that the LA Rams can just buy a team. Offended. I mean, I'm offended over everything. And you just walk around in a bad mood. And I catch myself there every now and then. I'm like, why am I getting so offended? It's ruining your life. But it's also keeping you from your miracle. And you can have a joy, and you could have the miracle. You cannot control if someone offends you, but you can decide not to be offended. Proverbs 19:11 says, good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is to his glory to overlook an offense. That should be our life first from here on out. Just going to overlook an offense. Going to do it. Just going to overlook it. Because your life is too short and your calling is too great to live in offense. God has too much that he wants to do with you. You say, so what am I supposed to do, Pastor? How am I supposed to do that? We're going to have the response time open. Maybe you need to go to the cross and say, God, why did it take me so long? I forgive them because you forgave me. And you just forgive them. What if you go to the take communion, remembering how Jesus' blood and body paid a price for you, and you go, he paid that price for them too. Not going to live offended. What if you just got to a new position, a new posture, a new place? Like Rene Descartes said, whenever anyone has offended me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. Great philosopher. Another great philosopher said, maybe this is a better way to put it, and you can live this one out. Let it go. Let it go. The words of Elsa over you today. Just let it go. Just let it go. Let's go back to our verse. Because I want us to live free of sin, remember? And to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you the whole time. You're the one who's in the prison and the pain. Romans 6:6 says, we know that our old sinful selves were crucified with Christ. So that sin, can we just for creative license say offense? so that offense might lose its power in our lives. We are no longer slaves to offense. What a freedom that we could walk in. See, God will not allow you to carry the drama of your pain into the destiny of your purpose. He's going to strip that away from you before you get to go on to the next thing. And today, I think some people are going to walk out of here freer than they came in and with a different attitude on the heart. God, would you allow us to respond to you now? You have spoken. We have heard from you. God, we hear you telling us what to do. Now we want to know we are going to do something about it. We are going to be action-oriented in our faith. And so, God, as we respond now, we respond at the cross, just asking for your repentance, giving you our repentance, asking for your forgiveness. And we respond by going to prayer teams and saying, I need to borrow some faith because I need to forgive somebody, but I don't have the faith to do it. We take our scoffing and we nail it to the cross, God. Scoffing no longer, but wondering at how good you are. So God, we respond to you now. We love you with everything that we have, but some of what we are and what we have is being held back by our offense. And so we ask you to strip that away today as we respond to you in Jesus' name. Amen.